Phoenix is the final installment in Fox's X-Men series. This is like, I don't know, I lost track of what number X-Men movie this is because you gotta count the Deadpool movies, you gotta count the Wolverine movies, and you gotta count the other X-Men movies. This is definitely the 7th in the main series if you don't count the Deadpool movies and the Wolverine movies. In Dark Phoenix, the X-Men have to go on a rescue mission into space in which Jean Grey absorbs a solar flare and gets the power of the Dark Phoenix. Now, she turns on the X-Men, and the X-Men must decide whether or not one of their own is worth saving or whether or not one of their own is worth dying. Now, in 2006, this exact storyline was adapted into X-Men The Last Stand. X-Men The Last Stand has gone from a movie that I've liked to just thought was meh to a movie that literally pisses me the hell off. So when they erased the timeline in Days of Future Past and were able to reset everything and undo the events of The Last Stand, that made me really happy. And to see another adaptation of the Dark Phoenix saga, hopefully done right, I was really pulling for this movie despite everybody wanting it to fail, despite the trailers not being that great, despite the release date being pushed back numerous times, and Dark Phoenix is really a mixed bag. It's not as bad as critics are saying it is. It's also not very good. But it is better than X-Men The Last Stand. I don't think that's saying a lot, but this movie didn't piss me off like that movie did. First of all, what we have here is a movie that has a lot more focus than The Last Stand. The Last Stand is just all over the place. What they did with The Last Stand is they combined what they were going to do for X-Men 3 and X-Men 4 into one movie that was an hour and 45 minutes, and there's just subplots and subplots galore. Characters are all out of character. The only one that's in character is Magneto. None of the decisions in that movie make any sense. At least Dark Phoenix, the movie, has a focus. Despite a really dumb subplot that I'll get into in a minute, at least at the core of this movie, the story is the Dark Phoenix saga. And I commend the movie for sticking to its guns and focusing solely on that, aside from the dumb subplot. The acting in this movie is also really, really good. Sophie Turner is definitely the star. She's fresh off Game of Thrones, so she can do whatever the hell she wants now. And I thought she was really good in this movie. The acting is really good, aside from Jennifer Lawrence, because Jennifer Lawrence has just been phoning it in as Mystique for 2 movies now. She doesn't want to be here. Despite all the reshoots, despite all the negativity surrounding the movie, I feel as if that they gave it their all. And Kinberg got a lot out of these people. Simon Kinberg wrote and directed this movie. It's a first-time director. I'll talk about him a little bit more in a minute. In the first 30 minutes of this movie, I was really digging. I was like, man, this is like, I don't know what critics are talking about. This is one of the best X-Men movies ever produced. And I thought that the first 30 minutes had me floored. They were riveting. They were exciting. I was like, I've heard that this movie's boring. This is definitely not boring. It's raising some really good questions here. And then after that is kind of where the movie falters. Because we're introduced to this entire subplot with Jessica Chastain's character. It's a really, really bad subplot. It's there just to make Jean Grey have a little devil on her shoulder, which totally is not needed in the film. And Jessica Chastain's character, there's nothing to her in this movie. Oh my god, what a terrible villain! That was one of the worst villains in a comic book movie I've seen in a long time. Jesus, man. And I felt as if Magneto being in the movie was completely inconsequential, because he shows up about halfway through the movie. Right up to that point, I'm like, where is Magneto? I'm like, how does he come into play in all this? And I feel like his motivation to come into play in all this just doesn't make all that much sense. And I gotta say, when Magneto shows up, Jean Grey finds him, and I'm thinking to myself, how did you get from that point to the middle of a fucking island? Characters just show up randomly in locations with little to no explanation, like they can fucking teleport. It's so weird. I get it. They're X-Men. Some of them can teleport. But, like, people who can't teleport, how do you get from point A to Z and skip all the other letters of the alphabet in between? I don't get it. Stuff like that makes no sense. And the entire third act of the movie just feels so detracted from the rest of the movie. It's the part of the movie that didn't test well with test audiences, and they had to reshoot the entire thing. It's that train sequence from the trailer. It feels like a completely different movie. Like, it feels just so out of place. The last 45 minutes of this movie just don't feel like they belong in this movie. They don't feel like they belong in an X-Men movie. It's such a weird change from the first 2/3 of the movie to that. And then all of a sudden that happens. And it's so different from the rest of the movie, because it relies so heavily on action. And the action scenes in this movie, Simon Kinberg does not know how to direct a movie. This is his directorial debut. They should have got somebody who is a seasoned veteran in action and blockbusters to direct this movie, because the action is all over the place. The camera's just shaking. I can't tell what the hell is going on when the camera is just shaking all over the place, especially in that final sequence. You can definitely tell that this is the work of somebody who has never directed a movie before, who is a very inexperienced filmmaker. I get it. He's produced all the X-Men movies. He's written some of the X-Men movies. Just because you can write and produce doesn't mean you can direct. And he does not do a good job at directing this movie. While I felt that the first 30 minutes of the movie were really riveting and emotional, it raised some questions. The acting, aside from Jennifer Lawrence, was really good. And this movie has a lot more focus than The Last Stand. And it is a better movie than The Last Stand, in my opinion. Just throwing that out there. It does have major issues, including this really bad subplot with a really, really bad villain played by Jessica Chastain, an entire third act that feels so detracted from the rest of the film, an inexperienced director who has never directed anything to this magnitude before, and characters just pop up in places with little to no explanation and it makes no sense. I was really disappointed with Dark Phoenix, but at least in my mind, it's better than X-Men Origins, Wolverine, and The Last Stand. It didn't piss me off like The Last Stand did, so I'll give it that. I'm going to give Dark Phoenix a C+. Kind of a disappointing end to this Fox X-Men series, but hey, I mean, what are you going to do? This movie just feels like a whatever movie. But I mean, I didn't hate it. I wanted to go in loving this movie. I'm glad I didn't walk out hating it, but I wanted to like it a lot more. Thank you for watching my review of Dark Phoenix. You guys are the best. I will leave all my links to my social media accounts in the description below. My name is Alex Madden, and I'll see you at the movies somewhere.